Hello again, everybody. This is Mr. Everything, and I'm coming back at you with another Wargaming and miniature video. In this video, we're going to continue on with our Battlegroup Boot Camp. And in this episode of the Battlegroup Boot Camp, we're going to be talking about morale. There are a couple of different layers of morale. There's the unit level morale, and then there's the battlegroup level morale, which is basically your army morale or your side of the table's morale. Your force, whatever force you're controlling, it has an overall morale, and then your individual units have morale. Morale is a vital factor in an army, as men without the resolve, determination, and will to win are unlikely to stand for long in the face of enemy machine gun and shells. Self-preservation is almost always the first priority for any soldier on the ground. And because of this, combatants cannot always be relied upon to do exactly as their commanders would wish, especially when actually under fire. Also, an army cannot afford to allow itself to be destroyed in detail. Higher commanders must be aware of how many casualties they are taking and whether the potential gains of a victory are worth the losses being sustained. This is a decision taken at a higher rank than the battlegroup commander represents on the wargame table. This means that, to some extent, it is beyond your immediate control and is represented by the battlegroup battle rating system, which we'll talk about here in this video. I'm combining two halves of the morale into this one video. Okay, unit morale. Few units will fight to the last man. Most will rapidly become combat ineffective as casualties mount. Some men will just become too scared to fight on and will abandon their battle to seek shelter of a ditch. Others will run for the rear, and some may even surrender. Okay, infantry unit morale. An infantry squad or team must take a morale test if it takes any casualties. Now, veteran and elite units can ignore one of the pinned results on the unit morale table, shown here. That represents their greater training and fortitude. And an elite unit can re-roll a morale test if it wishes. Last man standing. Units will rarely fight to the last man. Often they will be given permission to withdraw before being completely wiped out. But it is also likely that the last man will just take to his heels. And if an infantry unit is reduced to a single man and then is also pinned, then the survivor runs off or hides or both. Remove him from play, and the unit counts as destroyed. Okay, so I'm reading into this a little bit. I'm gonna give a little bit of tactical advice. When you're playing a game and you have a unit that only has one man in it, you might consider pulling that unit off the table and having it retreat or fall back. You can have it voluntarily leave the table. If you do that, you don't have to pull a battle counter. But if it gets shot at and then it gets pinned because you just decided to put him into the harm's way, you'll have to take a battle counter. And so that brings your side closer to defeat. And we'll get into the battle rating here and battle counters in the second half of this video. Okay, deployed guns, right? You see you got on the table, you have infantry and you have guns. As with infantry, if a deployed gun or mortar team takes any casualties, then it must also make a morale test. If the gun itself is destroyed, then the crew automatically abandon it and count as destroyed. The crew will not fight on if their gun is destroyed. Last man standing also applies to guns. Gun and mortar are interchangeable. Okay, vehicles. Vehicles, or more correctly, their crew, must make a morale test if they take a hit from any source that does not destroy them. Armored vehicles do not have to take morale tests from hits from small arms or machine gun fire, as that's what they're designed to withstand. They're not too worried. Yeah, so if you got a tank and I hit you with an anti-tank gun, but I do no damage, I don't pin you, I don't, destroy you or immobilize you or anything, it doesn't matter. If you get hit with an anti-tank gun, you still have to make a morale test. And then lastly, aircraft. Aircraft have to make a morale test if they get pinned or damaged. All right, now let's read the results of this table here. The first one says pinned rout. Okay, so if an infantry unit gets the result pin rout, and if it's reduced to less than 50% of its starting strength, or is already pinned, like a double pin, then the unit has had enough. It seeks shelter, runs off, it's destroyed, draw a battle counter. If it's still above 50% strength, and it's also not already pinned, then it counts as pinned. Okay, so if you get pinned, or if you're already pinned, and then a morale check causes a pinned rout, then you're eliminated. Now, guns have a result called abandoned. If the crew of the gun, they run off, the unit counts as destroyed. Pinned just means you're pinned. If you already have a pinned, you're still just pinned. Only the pinned rout causes you to be destroyed if you get a second pin. And you can guess what OK stands for. The unit is determined to continue on. Now, aircraft have a special one called return to base. So the aircraft is driven off, it's returned to base, you remove it from play, but you don't draw a battle counter because it's not shot down, it flies back, lands at its airfield, can come back in another day. So basically you cause it to rout, but there's no battle counter drawn. Now if you notice on this chart, there are some annotations. One is under vehicle abandoned. It says only abandoned if the vehicle is already pinned, immobilized, a soft skin vehicle, or the vehicle has enemy infantry within 10 inches and no friendly infantry within 10 inches, close support. Otherwise, treated as pinned. So a vehicle will not, you don't count that as abandoned unless all those other conditions are met. But the first thing I want to point out is if you're a soft skin vehicle, you abandon. Yeah, so if you're already pinned, you become abandoned. If you're already immobilized, you become abandoned. If you're soft skin, you become abandoned. Or if you don't have infantry within 10 inches, and there is enemy infantry within 10 inches, you become abandoned. Otherwise, you're just pinned. And then there's the annotation number 3 called, as well as passing the morale test, the unit is also inspired to get into action. The unit may immediately attempt a Beyond the Call of Duty test. Okay, so Beyond the Call of Duty, you have to make a test based on your experience level. If you're elite, it's 2 or better. Veteran, it's 2 or better. Regular, it's 3 or better. And inexperienced is 4 or better. If you roll a d6 and you pass your experience Beyond the Call of Duty test, your unit immediately removes all pin markers and you get an order. You get to execute an order immediately. If you have already been issued an order, it's okay. You can take a second order. And if you have not been given an order yet, you don't mark them as if they have taken an order, and they can still be issued orders later in the turn, therefore gaining 2 orders. That is the individual unit morale, fairly straightforward, right? So you take a casualty, or if you get shot at with an anti-tank gun in a tank and you're hit, I mean, if they miss, you don't have to roll. You get hit, or if you're infantry or a gun that takes damage, you make a morale check, and it either you'll be okay, you'll do a Beyond the Call of Duty test, you'll be pinned, or you'll be pinned routed. And you'll only rout if you're under 50% strength. Now, if there are no friendly units within 10 inches, but there is an enemy infantry unit within 10 inches, then you surrender. That's why it says rout surrender. Now, if you're still above 50% strength, then you become pinned instead. All right, the second half of the morale is the battle rating system. This is a little bit more complicated, and in my personal opinion, as Mr. Everything, the battle rating system is the reason why I play Battlegroup. This battle rating system is a very inspired way of doing side or army morale, and I like it quite a bit. So here, let me explain it. As well as the effect of fighting on individual unit morales, there's also attrition on the battle group itself, overall effectiveness, and the higher commander's willingness to press on for victory. This is represented by the battle rating system. So it's basically abstracting the commander that's above the player, telling him when it's time to withdraw. Okay, so each unit in the force is given a battle rating, and you'll find that in your army list. There is a number between 0 and 5. So let's say you take a unit with a battle rating of 2, and then you take another unit with a battle rating of 2, and you include those in your army list. Now your army, your force, has a battle rating of 4 because you total them up. Now, some cheap units are rated as important, like an aid station, while some very expensive units, point-wise, are not even given a battle rating. So before the game begins, total up your side's battle group's battle rating to get a total. Now, after the number on the unit's battle rating, there's also a letter. That letter is either I, R, V, or E. The I means inexperienced, R means regular, V means veteran, and E means elite. Okay, now in the back of the rule book, it comes with a cardstock page of battle counters that you can photocopy, or you can cut them out and use them directly from the book, or you can shop online, and that's where I got this image where they sell, or people out there in the universe sell, or you can make your own battle rating chits. I even thought about using playing cards and marking them and putting them in card sleeves and using them as a deck of cards instead of out of a tub. Not only are there numbers between 1 and 5, but there's also special counters like air attack, breakdown, mine strikes, Beyond the Call of Duty. And some theaters add other ones. Like I think the Fall of the Reich has like low fuel. I think the Kursk, maybe not the Kursk one, there's another one that says Panzerfaust misfire or something like that. So I'm just saying some of the different source books have their own battle rating chits. But this is the set right here that you use with 99% of the games out there. All right. Now, when do you take a counter? Well, before you start the game, you would put all these counters into a single hat, a pot, a bowl, a tub, a cup, whatever you're using. Keep it somewhere handy. When you're fighting the game and you start using or taking casualties, units, routes, vehicles are abandoned or destroyed, or some other event, then the battle group commander must take a random counter from the pot, and no peeking. The player keeps the counter a secret. What that means is, as an opponent, I would, as your enemy, let's say, and you kill one of my squads, I pull the counter out for my side because it's going to penalize me. And I look at it and I see that it's got a number between 1 and 5, or it's an airstrike, or it's a mine strike, or whatever it is. But I don't have to show you, my opponent, what that result is. You will know how many chits I've drawn, but you won't know what the values are. I might have drawn a bunch of 1s and got lucky. And you, like as you take casualties, you might be drawing all the 5s. You're being very unlucky. So you can see how many counters I've taken, but not the points. And then I'll keep a running total in my head. I mean, it's going to be pretty easy because your side is probably going to have a battle rating of somewhere between 40 to 50 points. So it's not going to be too hard to figure that out. Now you keep a running total, and once it exceeds your battle group's total battle rating, then your higher commander issues an order to you to break contact and withdraw. The battle is over and you are defeated. The game ends. So this is one of the ways that you can lose the game, is by taking enough battle chits to cause your battle rating to be reduced to 0. And these are the times you take a counter. When a unit is destroyed, so if it's destroyed by either morale effects like a surrender or a rout or an abandoned, or it's a gun or the tow vehicle or whatever would normally be given an order, if it's destroyed, you take a battle counter. Rally. Now at the end of your battle group's turn, you can voluntarily take a chit to rally a number of units. For every chit that you decide that you want to draw, that's how many dice you roll. And you have to decide this before you roll any dice. And that's the number of units that are pinned recover. The first time your side receives an air attack, you have to take a battle counter. The first time your side is under a flamethrower attack, you have to take a battle counter. When your senior officer is destroyed, not only do you take a battle counter for the squad that he's in is destroyed, but you also take one because there was a senior officer. So really you're taking 2 battle counters for that squad. You take an extra counter. Now at the start of the game, if you're out scouted, you take a battle counter. And basically what that's saying is, you count up the number of scouts on your team, I count up the number of scouts on my team at the start of the game, and whoever has the most wins the scouting battle. And all that means is the lower scouting takes a battle count. It basically just means they were outmaneuvered. So it's always good to have a few scouts in your team. Now when you play the scenarios, you really don't have any choice. You just get stuck with being out scouted. Okay, now there's objectives in the game. If your opponent captures a new objective, then you have to take a battle counter. Then if you go back and take that objective, then he has to take a battle counter. And then if he counterattacks and takes that objective again, now you have to take the battle counter. It can go back and forth like that, where you can take multiple battle counters for the same objective. And we'll go into objectives here in just a minute. And then finally, tactical coordination. Tactical coordination is an ability that senior commanders have. It's an order that can be issued to a senior. He can take a battle counter and attempt to remove pin from a unit in the middle of the turn. It's kind of good to remove from a unit and then give them an order to do something. But it's a hit or miss, and it's a whole battle counter just for one unit. Where at the end of your turn, when you rally, you can take a battle counter and rally a D6 units, and it's automatic. That's just my 2 cents. Okay, let's talk about objectives real quick, because objectives can switch hands every round, basically. Now, it's also another way you can win the game. Each scenario will dictate how many objectives there are. These objectives are important locations that need to be captured. To capture an objective, one side must move a unit, and it cannot be pinned to within 5 inches of the objective. And then there must be no enemy units, pinned or unpinned, within 10 inches of the objective. So basically, you have to make sure there's no enemy within 10 inches, and you have to have an active unit within 5 inches. Once captured, the enemy takes the battle counter. Now, here's a curveball. If your side has objectives on your side of the table, at the start of your turn, if you have somebody within 5 inches of that objective, and obviously there's not going to be any enemy within 10 inches, most likely, then you take that objective. And if you take that objective at the start of your turn, your opponent has to take a battle count. So it's almost like you were given the objective, so he has to take a battle. That's one of the advantages of defending. Now, you can't take an objective from yourself. So after the first turn, where you have occupied the objective, you don't get to occupy it again on the following turn. It's yours now, and the enemy's going to come up and try to take it. But yes, you don't start with the objective in your possession. It might be in your deployment zone, or it might be where your units are when you start the game, but you actually have to take the objective. And when you do, your opponent gets dinged for it. Now, if the enemy manages to recapture it by removing your units and then getting their own within 5, then the situation is reversed and you have to take a counter. And this goes back and forth. Now, at the end of an enemy turn, if at the end of an enemy turn, a commander can claim to be holding all the objectives on the table, they can claim an all objectives held victory. Okay, so what that is saying is, if I take all the objectives, you get 1 turn to take one of those objectives back from me. If you fail to take one of those objectives back, then I win because I have taken all the objectives. So be warned, ignoring objectives at your own peril. Okay, another one is wiped out or pinned down. This is another way to win the game. It's possible to win the game by breaking the enemy. If at the start of your turn, all your units have been wiped out or are pinned, or a combination of both, or you can't issue orders, you are defeated, regardless of your current battle rating. The game is over. So if your last unit gets pinned and it turns out to be your turn, you can't issue orders to pinned units, you're done. Okay, tactical loss. Okay, this is a little, I don't know, subjective per se. I don't know how you can. Basically, it's saying if your friends decide it's time to quit the game, or you guys have been playing all day, or you set a time limit like I am going to be doing at my upcoming convention. If I'm only given a 4-hour time slot, at the end of that 4-hour time slot, if there isn't a winner, then we stop the game, and the side with the highest total remaining battle rating is the winner. The side closest to 0 at the end of the game has taken a tactical defeat, a narrow tactical. There are no draws in Battlegroup. Now, should both sides have the same amount of battle rating remaining, then you go to the next. Then the side that's holding the most objectives is the winner. Now, if there's an equal number of objectives being held, or it's a draw, then the side that has inflicted the most battle rating is the winner. Now, for some freak circumstance, this is also a draw, then the side that out-scouted the other wins the. Now, if this is also a tie, oh damn, I just give up. If there are so many things, they give you so many ways to figure out who won. If you tie them all, man, that was a close game in my opinion. That would be super close. Okay, now we're just going to talk about reserves and voluntarily leaving the table. Okay, reserves are entering the table. So some scenarios call for the arrival of reserves or reinforcements. Often this is a random number. Each unit counts as one reserve, except for transport or towing vehicles, which still count as one unit. So remember, issuing orders. If you have a infantry unit in the back of a truck, that entity, the truck and unit and everything that's in that truck, counts as one order. So you issue an order to the truck and the passengers just go along. And if the truck decides to dismount, then the units become, at that point, a separate unit, and they have to get their own orders. But while they're in the truck, they act with the truck. So a reserve that brings a truck and infantry together, you can have them come onto the table, transported or even towed or whatever. It still counts as one unit as being on the table. Now, once reserve units are placed on the table, you place them on the edge of the table, and it's usually reserves. You roll that at the start of your turn, or you determine like what turn they come on, and at the start of that turn, you place them on the edge of the table where they're supposed to come on, and they just sit there. And then when you issue orders, at that point, you can issue them an order, and then they can move as normal. Being placed on the table does not count as an order or moving. Now, the full amount of reserves rolled must be deployed. So you can't partially deploy. So if it says these 2 units come on turn 3, well, then that's it. Those 2 units come on turn 3. Now, if multiple reserves come on a certain road, then yes, you would place one behind the other, but you would consider them all entering the table. They're waiting for their turn for the road to open up. Okay, now voluntarily leaving the table. Last thing. If a unit voluntarily leaves the table, then do not take a counter. This unit has withdrawn to safety and will live to fight another day. It won't be able to return, but it's still counted as being wiped out. So what that means is, for winning the game, wiped out and pinned, basically it's saying that you have nothing on the table that you can give orders to. And if you voluntarily run off the table with something, it's still not on the table. So it still counts towards the wiped out or pinned victory. Okay, so battle rating, right? Your army list has your units, or the scenario you're playing will tell you what the battle rating of your force is. And then as you start taking casualties, units are getting destroyed, or if you're doing some rallying from being pinned, you'll be drawing battle counters. And once your total reaches your battle rating, then your unit withdraws off the field because you've taken too many casualties and your overall commander above your head has given you orders to withdraw. Okay, now there are a few special counters like air attack, beyond the call of duty, confusion, mine strike, ammunition low, and breakdown. So let's talk about those real quick. So remember that both sides are drawing from the same allotment of chits. So you have one set of chits and both players share. If you draw an air attack counter, then there is a chance that an aircraft is inbound on ground attack mission to aid your battle group. So this is kind of weird, which I dig. It's that you're taking a punishment, but instead of your battle rating going down, you get a potential boon, a potential air attack on your side. So you have like no loss at all. It's actually a good thing. At the start of your next turn, so you place the counter on the edge of the table, and at the start of your next turn, you roll a d6, and on a 5 or better, the aircraft will arrive. And then you roll on the close air support table to see what type of airplane. And every army list has a different, different time period. And in those time periods, you have different types of planes that could show up. And a failed roll means no aircraft this time. So that chit would then just go into your pile of chits. If you have an air spotter on the table, then you can actually reduce that 5 or better to a better number. Another one you could draw is Beyond the Call of Duty. So if you draw a chit Beyond the Call of Duty, you immediately play that on one of your units, and it immediately can make a Beyond the Call of Duty test, and if passed, then immediately be given an order. So if they pass the Call of Duty test, they remove a pin. So this is really good to play on a unit that maybe is pinned. So it's kind of like a free removal of a pin if you succeed in your Beyond the Call of Duty test. And you can give it an order. So you can pull it out of harm's way, or you can have it attack, or whatever you normally. The next one is Confusion. I don't know why they call it Confusion. They should call it Morale or something like that. And I'll explain why. So the battlefield is a confusing place. Things go wrong. People or units do not act as your commander wishes. Confusion can reign and as the shells land. And units can easily be accidentally fired on by their own side. This unpredictability is represented by the confusion counter. So you play this counter on any enemy unit, and it must make a morale test, just as if it had taken fire. So that's another good thing for you, right? So you're taking casualties, you have to draw a counter, and oh, look at this, I get to make someone else take a morale check. But by playing it on your opponent, he knows that you just drew a 0. So it kind of clues him in. Next one, Mine Strike. Now, World War II battlefields could crop up anywhere, and an unlucky vehicle might roll over one at any time. So play the Mine Strike on any enemy vehicle that moved this turn or last turn. So it cannot be played on a static vehicle. So if I've got a vehicle parked behind a tree and he's been there for a couple of turns, you cannot play a Mine Strike because mines don't move, right? My tank, if it's not moving, how did it hit a mine, right? But if I've been driving my Jeep across the table, you could just play the Mine Strike on me, and I have to roll on the Mine Strike table. 1, friendly fire. Wait, that's not me. It's you. Okay. It's not an enemy vehicle, but one of your own. So at that point, me, the guy with the Jeep driving across the table, I decide, let me play that on your Panther tank over there. Boom. Because you rolled a 1. And then I would roll. And then I roll A 2 through 5 is kaboom, and 6 is critical, and 1 is friendly fire. So if I roll a 1, it could still go back and forth, right? It can go back and forth indefinitely until somebody rolls a 2 through 6. Now, if you roll a 2 through 5, you're hit with a penetration value of 5 against whatever the rear armor is, just like an AP round. Now, if you roll a 6, he's basically destroyed. You don't have to roll to hit or anything. So you blow a track off, the turret goes flying, the crew abandons, something happens that causes it to be eliminated. So Mind Strike is 1 in 6 chance of killing something, but it's also a 1 in 6 chance that it's coming back at you. Okay. Ammunition low. An enemy unit is running out of ammunition. This counter is immediately played on an enemy infantry unit or deployed gun. Now, if it's a gun and it has a loader team, then remove the loader team, but that won't count as a battle counter. And then roll on the table. This counter cannot be played on a vehicle. So you roll a die. 1, no effect. They've got enough ammo to last. 2 to 3, they're almost empty. They can take 1 more shot and then they'll be out of ammo. And then 4 to 5, they're out of ammo. And 6, out of ammo, run. So they quit the battlefield and they count as destroyed. I've got ammunition low. I play it on that Sherman tank. I roll a 6. He's destroyed and he has to take a battle counter. Yeah, it goes back and forth like that, and your battle rating can actually drop quickly in one turn. Okay, final one, breakdown. Moving off-road or pushing equipment to its limits, vehicles can often suffer mechanical problems. So play this on an enemy vehicle, but not an aircraft. Roll a die on the breakdown table. Now, if your own battle group contains any vehicles with the unreliable special rule, you have to play it on your own vehicle with the rule. Normally, if you draw a breakdown, you're basically forcing your opponent to roll on the table to see if one of his vehicles breaks down. But if your own side has unreliable vehicle, then you're forced to keep that counter and play it on your side. 1, no effect, keeps clanking along. 2 to 5, he's immobilized. Okay, remember, if a soft skin vehicle is immobilized, it is destroyed. But a tank that's immobilized can sit there as a turret and just fire at stuff. Severe breakdown. The vehicle breaks down badly, perhaps catching fire. It's counted as destroyed. So you can break somebody down. So when you're designing your armies, keep that in mind if you want to get that unreliable vehicle or not. All right, so what we did here today is we went over the individual morale table, showing you what happens when you take casualties. You roll on the chart. We also talked about the chits and when to draw a chit and how to win the game. And then we also kind of went over the individual special counters and what they mean. Thank you for coming out and checking out this Battlegroup Boot Camp video, and check out the entire series, and I will see you in the next one.